Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Myles Moore from the Menzies Institute for Medical Research, who's going to speak on exaggerated exercise blood pressure, an opportunity to identify cardiac structural adaptation.
Thanks, Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yes, Myles, go for it.
Grand. An exaggerated systolic blood pressure response to exercise is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease and may reveal high blood pressure not detected at rest. Underlying this association between an exaggerated exercise blood pressure response and cardiovascular risk is the potential for some cardiac structural adaptation. However, this has never been systematically assessed and was the aim of this study. 2 independent reviewers searched 3 online databases for studies reporting an association between exercise blood pressure and cardiac structure. A study was included if it was a full-length English publication, had adults 18 years of age or older, and reported a continuous or categorical relationship between exercise blood pressure and cardiac structure. Overall, we found 47 studies that were eligible for this systematic review, which were predominantly middle to older age adults and male. Using random effect meta-analyses, we compared cardiac structure between those with and without an exaggerated blood pressure response. Compared to those without an exaggerated blood pressure response, we found that those with an exaggerated blood pressure response had, on average, 47 grams higher left ventricle mass, 7 grams per meter squared higher left ventricle mass index, 0.02 higher relative wall thickness, 2 millimeter larger left atrial diameter, and even 2.6 times higher risk of left ventricle hypertrophy. Using meta-regression analyses, the pooled mean difference in these structural cardiac parameters were also similar between different study populations and exercise testing modalities. And this included study populations that had participants with and without resting hypertension, athletes compared to individuals with chronic disease, studies that use treadmill or bike ergometers, and studies that measured blood pressure during submaximal or peak exercise intensities. Overall, several structural cardiac parameters are different between those with and without an exaggerated blood pressure response. As structural cardiac adaptation is a principal sign of organ damage related to high blood pressure, these results highlight the potential hypertension-related cardiovascular risk associated with an exaggerated blood pressure response to exercise. Thank you.
Thanks, Myles. Are there any questions? James Cox, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious as to how you defined the exaggerated exercise systolic blood pressure, and also the method of how the blood pressure was measured in these studies?
Sure. So the first one, given that this was a meta-analysis, we used the threshold defined within those individual studies. So this meant that thresholds were different. The predominant threshold used was 210 millimeters of mercury at peak exercise in males, and 190 in females, and that was also at peak exercise intensity. But this also varied within the submaximal exercise intensities, but this has never been a defined threshold in previous studies. With your second question regarding the methodologies, that was manual and automated, and previous studies have shown that these 2 methods are concordant within healthy populations and those with type 2 diabetes.
Okay, thank you. And nice presentation, by the way.
Cheers, thank you.
Myles, was there much consistency between the protocols? Was it, or was there a mix of treadmill versus exercise bike?
There was more treadmill. I cannot remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I cannot remember the exact numbers. But there was more treadmill, and I think that was based off Bruce protocol as well.
Okay, great. And one very quick answer, if you could, just a question from Audrey Agee about, is there any association with heart rate?
We couldn't look at that in this study. That was something, all these results were unadjusted, but something to consider given that fitness could also play a part in this as well.
Great. Okay, thanks, Myles. We'll move on. Thanks for your presentation.
Cheers, thank you.